They sold the worthless alien girl. The human paid with his life savings to save her. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. The slave market on Station Corvus 7 stank of desperation and broken dreams, where the galaxy's unwanted were auctioned to the highest bidder. Among the crowd of traders and criminals stood Ethan Cole, a human cargo hauler whose weathered face had seen too many injustices to ignore just one more. The auction block stood in the center of a massive warehouse, its walls lined with cages holding beings from 100 different worlds. Ethan had come to Corvus 7 for engine parts, not to witness another display of the galaxy's cruelty. But as he pushed through the crowd of buyers, mostly Vaxorian traders and Helltran smugglers, something made him stop. On the auction block stood a small figure, barely reaching 4 feet tall. She was a Mirani, a species Ethan had only read about in obscure xenobiology reports. Her skin shimmered with a faint blue luminescence, like starlight trapped beneath the surface. Large, dark eyes dominated her delicate face, currently fixed on the floor in defeat. Her small frame trembled, and the chains around her wrists looked absurdly heavy for someone so fragile. The auctioneer, a massive Vaxorian with skin like volcanic rock, gestured dismissively at her. His voice boomed across the warehouse through translator implants everyone wore. "This one is defective merchandise," he announced with a cruel laugh. A Mirani female, approximately 12 solar cycles old. Her kind was once prized for their telepathic abilities and connection to what they call the Song of Stars. But this one, he yanked her chain, making her stumble, is worthless. No telepathic ability, no value to her own people. They abandoned her colony 3 cycles ago. Starting bid is 500 credits, just to cover my costs. The crowd murmured with disinterest. 500 credits was nothing in the galactic economy, barely enough for a decent meal on most civilized stations. But it was clear no one wanted to waste even that pittance on a broken alien child. 500, someone called out with a laugh. I could use a ship scrubber. The Mirani girl flinched at the comment, her luminescence dimming further. Ethan felt his jaw tighten. He had seen many terrible things in his 20 years hauling cargo across the outer territories. He had learned to look away, to focus on his own survival in a galaxy that cared nothing for human sentimentality. But something about this moment, this child being reduced to a punchline, ignited something in him he thought he had buried long ago. His hand went to the credit chip in his pocket. It contained 47,000 credits, his entire life savings. 3 years of dangerous runs through pirate-infested space routes, sleeping in his ship's cargo bay to save on station fees, eating recycled protein paste while watching others feast. It was supposed to be his ticket out, enough to finally buy a small colony plot on New Terra and retire from the hell of deep space hauling. The auctioneer was about to close the bid when Ethan's voice cut through the warehouse. 47,000 credits. The entire market fell silent. Heads turned toward him, a sea of alien faces registering shock, confusion, and calculation. The auctioneer's expression shifted from surprise to greedy delight. The human said 47,000? For this defective Mirani? The Vaxorian's laugh was like grinding stones. You must be joking, human. She cannot even perform the most basic telepathic tasks. Her own kind rejected her. Ethan pushed through the crowd until he stood at the base of the auction block. He looked up at the Mirani girl, and for the first time, she raised her eyes to meet his. There was fear there, yes, but also something else. A flicker of desperate hope that made his chest ache. I don't joke about business, Ethan said firmly. 47,000 credits for her freedom, not her servitude. I want full emancipation papers, legal across all Concordat territories. The auctioneer's eyes narrowed. Freedom papers cost extra, human. Processing fees, administrative costs. You are looking at another 3,000 credits minimum. Ethan felt his stomach drop. He didn't have another 3,000 credits. He had exactly 47,012 credits to his name. But before he could speak, a voice from the crowd interrupted. I will cover the administrative fees. An elderly Helltran female emerged from the onlookers, her 6 eyes blinking in sequence. She was small for her species, her blue-green skin marked with age patterns. Her clothing marked her as a medical practitioner, rare and respected even in places like this. Dr. Morena, the auctioneer said with obvious surprise. Why would you involve yourself in this transaction? The Heltran woman approached Ethan, studying him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. Because in 30 years operating a clinic in this cesspool, I have never seen anyone offer their entire fortune for a stranger's freedom. I am curious to see if human compassion is truly as irrational as the galaxy believes. She turned to the auctioneer. Process the freedom papers. I will handle the fees, and I will personally verify their authenticity, so do not attempt your usual forgeries, Vexel. The auctioneer grumbled, but began working on a datapad. The crowd slowly dispersed, the entertainment over, though many cast backward glances at the human who had just bankrupted himself for a worthless alien child. 20 minutes later, Ethan held a data chip containing legal emancipation papers, verified and sealed. The Mirani girl stood beside him, no longer in chains, clutching the second copy of her freedom documents like they might disappear. Her luminescence had brightened slightly, casting a soft blue glow in the dim warehouse. Dr. Morena handed Ethan a small card. My clinic is in Sector 9, she said. Bring her by tomorrow. Mirani physiology requires specific nutritional supplements, and I suspect she has been malnourished. I will provide the first month's supply at no cost. Consider it my investment in this interesting experiment. Before Ethan could thank her, she was gone, disappearing into the crowded market. He looked down at the girl, suddenly very aware that he had no idea what to do next. His ship, the Wandering Star, was a small cargo hauler with barely enough room for himself, let alone a passenger. He had no money for food, no plan beyond the next few hours. The girl looked up at him and spoke for the first time, her voice like wind chimes. Why did you save me? I am defective. I cannot hear the song like my people. I cannot do anything useful. Her Galactic common was accented but clear, each word carefully pronounced, as if she had practiced extensively to get them right. Ethan knelt down to her eye level. What's your name? She hesitated. Lyra. My birth designation was much longer, but Lyra is what my mother called me before the colony left. Well, Lyra, Ethan said gently, I saved you because every life has value, whether the galaxy recognizes it or not. Being different doesn't make you worthless. It just makes you unique. Her large eyes filled with something he couldn't quite read. But you gave everything for me. The auctioneer announced your total. You had 47,000 credits. That was your whole life. Ethan stood, offering his hand. She took it, her small fingers barely wrapping around two of his. Credits can be earned again, he said, surprised by how much he believed it. But some things, once lost, can never be recovered. Like the chance to do the right thing when it matters most. They walked through the winding corridors of Corvus 7 toward the docking bay where the Wandering Star waited. The station was a sprawling maze of illegal markets, cheap entertainment districts, and repair shops that asked no questions. Beings of every species moved through the crowds, most with the hunted look of people trying to survive in the galaxy's forgotten corners. Lyra stayed close to Ethan, her head swiveling to take in the chaotic surroundings. Despite everything she had been through, there was a keen intelligence in her observations, a curiosity that hadn't been completely crushed. Is Earth truly as beautiful as the stories say? She asked suddenly. I heard that your homeworld has vast oceans and forests that stretch beyond sight. Ethan smiled despite their circumstances. Parts of it, yeah? I grew up in the Rocky Mountain region. Mountains so tall they pierced the clouds, forests full of ancient trees. But I left when I was 18, been hauling cargo ever since. Do you miss it? Every single day. They reached the docking bay, where the Wandering Star sat in its assigned berth. The ship was a Constellation-class hauler, 30 years old and showing every day of it. Scorch marks from a pirate encounter near the Helios cluster marred the hull. The starboard thruster housing had been repaired so many times it was mostly aftermarket parts. But it was paid off, it was reliable, and it was home. Ethan led Lyra up the cargo ramp. The interior was cramped and utilitarian, every surface covered with the patina of hard use. The cargo hold took up most of the space, currently empty. A narrow corridor led to the cockpit, with a tiny cabin and even smaller washroom branching off. It's not much, Ethan said, suddenly self-conscious. I usually sleep in the jump seat in the cockpit. There's a fold-down bunk in the cabin you can use. It's small, but it's private. Lyra looked around with wide eyes, her bioluminescence reflecting off the metal walls. I have never had a private space before, she said quietly. At the colony, children slept in communal nests. And after, in the holding cells and transports, we were packed together like cargo. The casual mention of such treatment made Ethan's blood boil, but he kept his expression neutral. Well, now you do. Let me show you how the washroom works, and then we should both get some rest. I need to figure out our next move. He demonstrated the ship's basic facilities, which were designed for human use, but adaptable enough for most species. Lyra listened carefully, asking intelligent questions about the water reclamation system and environmental controls. Despite her young age and traumatic experiences, her mind was sharp. Later, with Lyra settled in the small cabin, Ethan sat in the cockpit staring at his account balance. 12 credits. 12 credits to his name in a galaxy where everything cost money. Fuel, food, docking fees, life support maintenance. The Wandering Star needed a new atmospheric scrubber, a repair he had been putting off but couldn't delay much longer. He pulled up his messages, scrolling through job postings. Most required upfront capital he didn't have, or were clearly fronts for illegal operations. A few legitimate hauling jobs were available, but the pay was terrible and the routes dangerous. A soft knock on the cockpit door made him turn. Lyra stood in the doorway, wrapped in an emergency blanket that dwarfed her small frame. I cannot sleep, she said. Everything is too quiet. I am not accustomed to silence. Ethan gestured to the co-pilot seat. Come sit. We can both stare at our problems together. She climbed into the seat, her feet dangling well above the floor. For several minutes, they sat in comfortable silence, watching the station's activity through the cockpit viewport. Ships came and went, their engines flaring in the darkness. You are wondering how you will survive, Lyra said. You gave everything for me, and now you have nothing. You are regretting your choice. Ethan looked at her in surprise. I thought you said you weren't telepathic. I am not, she replied. But I do not need telepathy to read body language and facial expressions. You keep checking your account balance and searching for jobs. Your shoulders are tense, and you have not smiled since we left the market. Ethan sighed. I'm not regretting saving you, Lyra. I'm just trying to figure out how we're going to eat next week. I could go back, she said quietly. You could sell my freedom papers. They are worth something to the right buyer. You would not get all your credits back, but enough to survive. The suggestion hit Ethan like a physical blow. Absolutely not. That's not happening, not ever. We'll figure something out. But I am worthless, Lyra insisted, her voice breaking. I cannot contribute anything. I cannot even hear the song that makes my people valuable. You saved something broken and useless. Ethan turned to face her fully. Listen to me very carefully, Lyra. You are not worthless. You are not broken. And anyone who told you otherwise was wrong. Yes, we have challenges ahead. Yes, I don't know exactly how we're going to manage. But we will figure it out together, because that's what people do when they care about each other. But you do not know me. You owe me nothing. Maybe that's exactly why I could help you, Ethan said. Because I didn't calculate the value or weigh the benefits. I just saw someone who needed help and knew I could provide it. That's not weakness, Lyra. That's humanity. She stared at him, her dark eyes reflecting the running lights of passing ships. What is humanity? Ethan leaned back in his seat, considering the question. It's hard to define. It's the choice to help even when it costs you. It's caring about strangers. It's believing that compassion and kindness matter, even when the whole galaxy seems designed to prove you wrong. The galaxy says humans are weak because of this, Lyra observed. The Vaxorians call you soft. The Heltrans consider your emotions a liability. Ethan smiled. Yeah, they do. And maybe they're right, in a way. Humans feel things deeply. We form attachments. We empathize. We care. In a galaxy that values strength and profit above all else, that probably does look like weakness. But you do not believe it is? I believe it's our greatest strength, Ethan said firmly. Because at the end of the day, when everything else falls apart, it's our connections with others that matter. It's the relationships we build, the people we help, the lives we touch. That's what makes existence meaningful. Lyra was quiet for a long moment. My people value the song above all else, she finally said. It is a telepathic connection that binds us together, a shared consciousness that allows perfect understanding. Those who cannot hear it are considered incomplete, failures of biology. I have spent my entire life being told I am less than nothing because I cannot participate in the song. Her bioluminescence flickered, dimming with emotion. When the colony decided to abandon the settlement, they left behind those they deemed unworthy. 15 of us, mostly children. They said we were a drain on resources, that we contributed nothing to the collective. We waited for 3 cycles for them to return. They never did. Ethan felt rage building in his chest, but he kept his voice gentle. What happened to the others? Lyra's glow dimmed further. The Vaxorian traders found us. They were efficient. They separated us by perceived value. The older ones who had some physical strength were sold as laborers. The younger ones like me were deemed worthless and sold to whoever would pay anything at all. I do not know what happened to most of them. I'm sorry, Ethan said, the words feeling inadequate. No one should go through that, especially not children. It is the way of the galaxy, Lyra said with a resignation that broke his heart. The strong survive, the weak are discarded. I learned this lesson well. Maybe it's time to learn a different lesson, Ethan suggested. That strength comes in many forms, and value isn't determined by what you can do for others, but by who you are as an individual. She looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. You truly believe this? I have to. Because if I didn't, I would have given up a long time ago. Humans aren't the strongest species in the galaxy. We're not the smartest, or the fastest, or the longest lived. But we're stubborn, Lyra. We refuse to accept that cruelty and indifference are the only options. We keep believing things can be better, even when all evidence suggests otherwise. Lyra's bioluminescence began to brighten again, just slightly. This is why you saved me. This is why I saved you. They sat in silence for a while longer, the tension in the cockpit easing. Finally, Lyra yawned, a delicate gesture that reminded Ethan just how young she was. Go get some sleep, he said gently. Tomorrow we'll visit Dr. Morena's clinic, get you checked out and properly fed. Then we'll figure out our next steps. Lyra slid down from the co-pilot's seat. Ethan, she said, hesitating at the door. Thank you. Not just for saving me, but for treating me like I matter. You do matter, Lyra. Don't ever forget that. After she left, Ethan returned to his job search with renewed determination. They needed work, and soon. The station's docking fees would drain his remaining credits within days. He finally found a promising lead, a research expedition that needed a ship for a 2-week survey mission in the nearby Talarius Nebula. The pay was decent, 20,000 credits, enough to get them back on their feet. There was one problem. The posting required a crew of at least 2, pilot and systems operator. Ethan could handle both roles in a pinch, but the nebula's electromagnetic interference made it genuinely dangerous to operate alone. He needed a second person. He glanced toward the cabin where Lyra was sleeping. She was just a child, with no training or experience. But she was intelligent and quick to learn. And most importantly, she was the only crew member he could afford, which was to say, free. The ethics of bringing a traumatized child on a potentially dangerous mission bothered him. But leaving her alone on the station while he worked was worse. At least on the ship, he could protect her, teach her, give her a chance to develop skills that might serve her in the future. The next morning, Ethan woke to the smell of something burning. He bolted from the jump seat where he had been sleeping and rushed to the small galley. Lyra stood on a storage crate, trying to operate the food processor, which was sparking and smoking. What happened? Ethan asked, quickly shutting down the machine. Lyra looked mortified. I wanted to prepare morning nutrition for you. As thanks. But I do not understand this device, and I think I may have damaged it. Ethan examined the processor and couldn't help but laugh. The poor machine had been programmed for human food, and Lyra had tried to input commands for Murani nutritional requirements, completely confusing its limited AI. It wasn't damaged, just very confused. It's okay, he said, resetting the system. The thought was nice, but let's work on understanding human tech before we try cooking. How about I make us both something simple, and you can watch how it's done? Over a breakfast of reconstituted eggs and protein bars, Ethan explained his plan. There's a job opportunity, he said. 2 weeks in the Talarius Nebula, survey work for a xenobiology research team. It pays 20,000 credits. Lyra's eyes widened. That is significant. It is, Ethan agreed. But there's a catch. They require a two-person crew. The nebula's electromagnetic fields are too dangerous for solo operation. Understanding dawned on her face. You wish me to be the second crew member? I know it's a lot to ask, Ethan said carefully. You have no training, and there could be risks. But I promise to teach you everything you need to know, and I won't let anything happen to you. The alternative is leaving you on the station while I work, and I don't like that option at all. Lyra sat up straighter, her bioluminescence brightening with what Ethan was learning to recognize as determination. I will do it. I wish to be useful, to contribute. Teach me what I need to know. They spent the morning at Dr. Morena's clinic in Sector 9. The Heltran physician conducted a thorough examination of Lyra, clucking her multiple tongues in disapproval at what she found. Severe malnutrition, systemic stress markers, and signs of chronic sleep deprivation, Morena reported. She has been through significant trauma, both physical and psychological. But Mirani are resilient, especially the young ones. With proper nutrition and care, she should recover fully. She provided Ethan with a month's supply of Mirani supplements and detailed nutritional guidelines. As they were leaving, she pulled Ethan aside. You have taken on a significant responsibility, human. That child has been abandoned by her own kind and brutalized by strangers. She will require patience, understanding, and consistency to heal. I know, Ethan said. I'll do my best. Morena's 6 eyes studied him. See that you do. The galaxy has enough broken children. It does not need another. Over the next 3 days, Ethan transformed into an instructor. He taught Lyra the basics of ship operation, starting with the environmental systems and working up to navigation and communications. She proved to be an exceptional student, absorbing information with startling speed and asking questions that showed deep comprehension. The Wandering Star uses a Mackenzie drive for faster-than-light travel, Ethan explained, indicating the ship's engine schematic on a datapad. It creates a bubble of compressed space-time around the ship, allowing us to effectively travel faster than light without actually exceeding light speed. Lyra studied the diagram. This is the same technology the Mirani use in our colony ships, but we call it the fold drive. The principle is identical. Exactly. Most FTL technology in the galaxy is based on the same fundamental physics, just implemented differently. Now, what happens if the field generators become misaligned during a jump? Lyra thought for a moment. The space-time bubble would become asymmetric, causing the ship to experience tidal forces. If severe enough, it could tear the ship apart. Right. So what's our safety protocol? We monitor field symmetry constantly during jumps, and if deviation exceeds 0.05%, we immediately abort the jump and return to normal space. Ethan grinned. Perfect. You're a natural at this. Her bioluminescence brightened with what he recognized as pleasure at the compliment. I have never been called natural at anything before. Well, get used to it. You've got good instincts and a sharp mind. That's worth more than any telepathic ability. They practiced emergency procedures, navigation plotting, and system diagnostics. Lyra made mistakes, of course, but she learned from each one and rarely repeated them. By the 3rd day, Ethan felt confident enough to accept the survey mission. The expedition leader was a Tyrellian named Vask, a scientist with 3 doctoral degrees and an air of perpetual impatience. He arrived at the docking bay with 2 assistants and enough equipment to fill half the Wandering Star's cargo hold. You are the human pilot, Vask said, his translator rendering his clicking speech into Galactic common. And this is your crew? He looked at Lyra with obvious skepticism. A Mirani child? She's qualified, Ethan said firmly. And she's under my protection, so I expect her to be treated with respect. Vask's sensory stalks quivered with what might have been amusement or annoyance. Very well. As long as you can navigate the nebula and maintain stable sensor platforms, I care not who operates your vessel. We depart in 2 hours. The journey to the Tellarius Nebula took 18 hours at standard cruise speed. Ethan used the time to continue Lyra's training, having her practice navigation corrections and system monitoring under real flight conditions. She handled the responsibility well, her confidence growing with each successful task. The Tyrellian scientists mostly kept to themselves in the cargo hold, running preliminary tests on their equipment. But occasionally, Vask would visit the cockpit to review their route and timeline. During one such visit, he observed Lyra running a diagnostic on the sensor array and made a thoughtful clicking sound. "The child has competence," he remarked to Ethan. "This is unexpected for a defective Mirani." "She's not defective," Ethan said sharply. "She's different. There's a distinction." Vask Stocks waved dismissively. "A semantic argument. Her kind value telepathic connection above all else. Without it, she cannot fulfill her species' primary function. By their standards, she is indeed defective. By their standards, maybe. But I'm judging her by her abilities, not her limitations. And by that measure, she's exceptional." Lyra, who had been pretending not to listen, glanced back at Ethan with an expression of gratitude. They reached the Tellarius Nebula just before the start of the mission window. The nebula was spectacular. Vast clouds of ionized gas in shades of purple and blue, shot through with veins of brilliant white where young stars were forming. But its beauty was dangerous. The electromagnetic interference was intense enough to scramble most sensor systems and disrupt communications. Ethan had prepared for this, equipping the wandering star with specialized shielding and adaptive sensor arrays. But the conditions still required constant attention and frequent adjustments. "Lyra, I need you to monitor the electromagnetic flux levels," Ethan said as they entered the nebula's outer regions. "If they spike above threshold gamma, we need to adjust our position immediately." "Understood," Lyra replied, her hands steady on the controls despite the tension in her voice. The survey work was tedious but demanding. The Tarn'eth scientists wanted to study the nebula's composition at dozens of specific coordinates, each requiring precise positioning and stable sensor platforms. For 2 weeks, Ethan and Lyra worked in shifts, sleeping in staggered cycles to ensure constant monitoring. Lyra proved invaluable. Her attention to detail caught several developing problems before they became critical, and her quick thinking during a sudden magnetic storm saved them from a potentially catastrophic collision with a dense gas pocket. On the 8th day, while Ethan was sleeping and Lyra was on watch, something extraordinary happened. The ship's sensors detected an anomaly, a structure hidden deep within the nebula's densest regions. Lyra woke Ethan immediately. "There is something artificial in Grid Sector 12, she reported. "The sensors are having difficulty resolving it through the interference, but the geometric patterns are too regular to be natural." Ethan studied the readings, his pulse quickening. "You're right. Vask needs to see this." The Tarn'eth scientist was thrilled by the discovery. "An ancient structure, possibly from the precursor civilization," he said, his stalks vibrating with excitement. "This is an extraordinary find. We must investigate immediately." Ethan was more cautious. "The interference in that region is severe. We'll be operating at the edge of our safety margins." But Vask was insistent, and technically, he was the client. Ethan plotted a careful approach, with Lyra monitoring every system for signs of stress. As they drew closer, the structure resolved on their sensors. It was a massive orbital platform, at least 3 kilometers across, its design unlike anything in the current galactic database. It appeared to be derelict, no power signatures or active systems, but its very existence was remarkable. The Tarn'eth were desperate to get closer, to scan the structure in detail. Ethan positioned the wandering star at what he hoped was a safe distance while they deployed their specialized sensor packages. Then everything went wrong at once. A massive electromagnetic pulse erupted from the structure, far stronger than anything they had encountered. The wandering star's systems went haywire, alarms blaring from every console. The ship began to tumble, its attitude control offline. Ethan fought with the controls, trying to stabilize their spin. "Lyra, I need backup power to the maneuvering thrusters now." She was already moving, her small hands flying over the engineering console. "Working on it. The main relays are fried. I am rerouting through secondary systems." The ship continued to tumble, and they were drifting closer to the structure. If they made contact at this speed, the collision would tear them apart. Vask and his assistants were screaming in the cargo hold, their equipment breaking free of its restraints and crashing around. But Ethan couldn't worry about them now. He had to save the ship. "Lyra, status. Rerouting complete. Power in 5 seconds. Make it 3. Her hands moved faster than Ethan would have thought possible. "Power now." The maneuvering thrusters fired, arresting their spin. Ethan immediately angled them away from the structure, pushing the engines as hard as he dared. They pulled clear with less than 100 meters to spare. It took another hour to fully restore systems and calm the panicked scientists. Vask was apologetic, admitting that his eagerness had overridden his judgment. The data they had collected before the pulse, however, was extraordinary and would likely revolutionize understanding of precursor technology. When they finally left the nebula and returned to Corvus 7, Vask paid the agreed 20,000 credits plus an additional 10,000 as hazard compensation. He also provided a glowing recommendation for future work. More importantly, at least to Ethan, Lyra had proven herself. She had remained calm under extreme pressure, had made critical decisions in seconds, and had likely saved all their lives. "You were incredible in there," Ethan told her after the Tyrellians had departed. "The way you rerouted that power under pressure, I couldn't have done it faster myself." Lyra's bioluminescence pulsed with pride. "I have a good teacher, and I wanted to prove that I could contribute, that saving me was not a mistake." Ethan knelt down to her level. "Lyra, listen carefully. Saving you was never a mistake, and you don't have to prove anything to me. You're valuable because you exist, not because of what you can do. But I am incredibly proud of the skills you're developing and the person you're becoming." Her eyes glistened with emotion. "Among my people, worth is measured by contribution to the collective song. Individual value is a foreign concept. But you see me as an individual with inherent worth. This is still difficult for me to comprehend." "That's okay," Ethan said gently. "You don't have to comprehend it all at once. Just know that you matter to me, and that's not conditional on your abilities or usefulness." Over the following months, Ethan and Lyra fell into a rhythm. They took jobs that allowed her to continue learning and developing her skills. She proved to have a natural aptitude for systems engineering and navigation, often finding elegant solutions to complex problems. Word spread about the human pilot and his exceptional young crew member. They began receiving offers for more prestigious jobs, working with research institutions, and even some corporate clients. The pay improved steadily, allowing Ethan to not only rebuild his savings, but also invest in ship upgrades and proper living quarters for Lyra. She grew in confidence and capability, but also in happiness. Her bioluminescence, which had been dim and flickering when Ethan first saw her, now shone bright and steady. She laughed frequently, asked endless curious questions about everything, and showed a creativity in problem-solving that consistently surprised him. One evening, 6 months after Ethan had bought her freedom, they were orbiting a beautiful ringed planet while waiting for their next job to begin. Lyra sat in the co-pilot seat, which had been modified with extensions so she could reach all the controls comfortably. "Ethan," she said thoughtfully, "may I ask you something personal?" "Of course. Do you ever regret spending your life savings to save me? You could have retired to New Terra, lived comfortably. Instead, you are still hauling cargo across dangerous space." Ethan looked at the planet below, its rings glittering in the light of its star. "You want the honest answer?" "Always. Not for one single second," he said firmly. "Yes, I gave up my retirement plan. Yes, we've had some difficult moments. But Lyra, having you as part of my life has been worth more than any peaceful retirement could ever be. You've made me remember why I loved space in the first place, why exploration and discovery matter. You've reminded me that there's more to life than just surviving." He turned to face her. "Plus, you've become the best crew member I've ever had. You're smart, capable, and brave. You make every day an adventure. Why would I regret that?" Lyra's luminescence brightened, casting dancing shadows across the cockpit. "I have been thinking about my people," she said quietly. "About the song I cannot hear. For so long, I believed I was broken because I could not connect to the Mirani collective consciousness. But now I wonder if being individual, being separate, might be its own kind of gift." "How so?" She gestured at the viewport. "The song binds Mirani together, makes them think and feel as one. They have perfect understanding, but they also have perfect conformity. No one questions, no one explores ideas that fall outside the collective. Those of us who cannot hear the song, we are forced to think for ourselves, to find our own path. Perhaps that is not a deficiency, but a different way of being." Ethan smiled. "That's a profound realization, Lyra. And you're absolutely right. Being different isn't the same as being broken. Sometimes it means you get to see things others miss, to ask questions no one else thinks to ask. Like humans, she observed. Your species is not the strongest or smartest in the galaxy, but you have something most species lack. You have individual drive combined with collective compassion. You compete with each other, but also help each other. You are independent, but not isolated. Ethan had never thought about humanity quite that way, but she was right. Yeah, I guess that is pretty unique. Most species tend toward one extreme or the other, either complete collectivism like your people or ruthless individualism like the Vaxorians. Humans find balance, Lyra said, and perhaps I am learning to do the same. I may not have the song, but I have found a different kind of connection. With you. The simple statement hit Ethan harder than he expected. Over the months, he had come to care deeply for Lyra, had begun to think of her as family rather than just a crew member. But hearing her express similar feelings made it real in a way it hadn't been before. You've got me too, kid, he said, his voice rough with emotion. For as long as you want. Their peaceful moment was interrupted by an incoming transmission. It was an unusual request, a Mirani colony ship seeking assistance. Their message was brief and formal, requesting help with a technical problem that was beyond their collective expertise. Ethan looked at Lyra. It's your people. Do you want to respond? She was quiet for a long moment, her bioluminescence flickering with conflicting emotions. Yes, she finally said, but I am uncertain how they will react to me. I'll be right there with you, Ethan assured her. And if they show you anything but respect, we're leaving immediately. They rendezvoused with the colony ship 3 hours later. It was a massive vessel, designed to transport thousands of Mirani in induced hibernation to new worlds. But according to their transmission, a critical failure in their navigation system had left them stranded between star systems. Ethan and Lyra boarded the colony ship, and the difference from the wandering star was stark. Everything was designed for collective living, with open spaces and interconnected chambers. The Mirani crew moved in synchronized patterns, their actions coordinated through the telepathic song. They were met by the ship's leader, an elderly Mirani named Tharan whose bioluminescence pulsed with authority. His attention fixed immediately on Lyra, and his light dimmed in what Ethan had learned was an expression of distaste. You are one of the silent, Tharan stated flatly. Why would you bring such a being here, human? Ethan felt anger rising but kept his voice level. This silent being is Lyra, my crew member and the finest systems engineer you're likely to meet. She's here because you requested technical assistance, and she's the best qualified to provide it. Theron's attention shifted to Ethan. You allow a defective to operate complex systems? This is foolish and dangerous. Before Ethan could respond, Lyra stepped forward. Her voice was steady, though her bioluminescence flickered. I am not defective, Elder Tharan. I am different. And while I cannot hear your song, I have developed skills and knowledge that have value. If you wish our assistance, you will speak to me with respect. If you cannot do this, we will depart, and you may solve your navigation crisis alone. Ethan felt a surge of pride. Lyra had come so far from the terrified child on the auction block. Theron's bioluminescence pulsed with surprise and what might have been grudging respect. The silent do not typically speak with such confidence. Very well, Engineer Lyra. Our navigation system has experienced a cascade failure in its quantum processors. All attempts by our song-link technicians have failed to resolve the issue. Lyra studied the technical readouts they provided. Your technicians are all connected through the song, yes? Working in perfect synchronization? This is correct. Then your problem is obvious, Lyra said calmly. Your navigation system was designed with quantum uncertainty principles that require individual observation and measurement. When multiple song-linked minds observe the quantum state simultaneously, you create a collective waveform collapse that corrupts the data. You need a single, independent observer to properly measure and reset the quantum processors. The Mirani crew exchanged looks, their bioluminescence flickering in patterns Ethan couldn't interpret. Theron's tone was cautious. This is a perspective we had not considered. The song allows us to pool our knowledge and expertise, but you suggest it can also be a hindrance? For certain tasks requiring quantum superposition and individual observation, yes, Lyra explained. Your collective consciousness is powerful, but in this specific case, it is preventing the solution. You need a silent observer like me to fix this. It took Lyra 4 hours to repair the navigation system, working alone while the song-linked Mirani crew watched in fascination. She explained each step as she worked, turning the repair into an impromptu lesson about quantum mechanics and the observer effect. When the navigation system came back online, functioning better than it had in years, the Ran approached Lyra with a different bearing. "You have shown wisdom beyond your years, young one," he said, "and you have taught us something valuable. We believe the song was essential for all advanced tasks, but you have demonstrated that individual perspective has unique strengths." He paused, his bioluminescence pulsing in a pattern of formal respect. "I must apologize. We were wrong to cast out the silent. In our certainty about the supremacy of collective thought, we failed to see the value of individual minds. You have more worth than we recognized." Lyra's response surprised everyone, including Ethan. "Your apology is noted, Elder the Ran, but it does not undo the harm. 15 children were abandoned to die because you deemed them unworthy. I survived only because this human saw value where you saw none. Your recognition now, while appreciated, comes too late for my companions who did not survive." The entire crew fell silent, their collective bioluminescence dimming with what could only be shame. However, Lyra continued, her voice softening, "I hope you will learn from this. Do not abandon future silent children. Find ways to integrate them, to value their unique perspectives. The galaxy is vast and complex. Surely there is room for both the song and the silence, both collective and individual thought." The Ran bowed, a gesture of deep respect among Mirani. "Your wisdom shames us, young one. We will carry your words back to the homeworld and advocate for change. The silent deserve better than they have received." As Ethan and Lyra prepared to depart the colony ship, the Ran made one final request. "Would you consider returning to the Mirani homeworld? There are many silent there who struggle without purpose or community. You could teach them, show them the path you have found." Lyra looked at Ethan, and he saw uncertainty in her eyes. "It's your choice," he said gently. "Whatever you decide, I support you." She turned back to the Ran. "I will consider it," she said, "but understand that my life is with Ethan now. He saved me when my own people abandoned me. That bond is not easily set aside." "We understand," the Ran replied. "The offer remains open should you change your mind. And as payment for your assistance today, we offer this." He handed her a data chip. "Complete schematics and operational codes for Mirani technology, including our most advanced systems. You have earned the right to this knowledge." Over the next year, Lyra and Ethan's reputation grew throughout the sector. They took on increasingly complex and prestigious jobs, becoming known for solving problems that stumped larger, more established crews. Their partnership was recognized as exceptional, and job offers came from across the galaxy. Lyra's skills continued to develop at an astonishing rate. By her 14th cycle, she had mastered systems engineering, astrogation, and even basic ship repair. But more than her technical abilities, it was her unique perspective that made her invaluable. Her ability to think independently, to see problems from angles that collective-minded species missed, opened up solutions no one else considered. One day, while docked at a major trade hub called Nexus Prime, they received an unusual visitor. Dr. Morena, the Heltran physician who had helped them on Corvus 7, arrived at their ship unannounced. "I have been following your careers with interest," she said, settling into the Wandering Star's small common area. "The defective Mirani child and the irrational human have become quite famous. Or should I say, the exceptional engineer and her compassionate captain?" Ethan laughed. "I'm not sure about famous, but we've been keeping busy." Morena's 6 eyes focused on Lyra. "You have grown, child. Not just in size, but in confidence and capability. You are a far cry from the frightened being I examined in my clinic." Lyra's bioluminescence brightened. "I have had a good teacher. And a good friend." The Heltran physician produced a datapad. "I have been documenting your case, with your permission of course. The psychological and developmental trajectory of a silent Mirani raised in an individual-focused environment rather than a collective one. The results are remarkable. You show none of the typical markers of depression, anxiety, or social dysfunction that plague silent Mirani in traditional communities. Is that unusual?" Ethan asked. "Very," Morena replied. Most silent Mirani who survive to adulthood show severe psychological damage from their isolation and rejection. But Lyra, you are thriving. I believe it is because you were given individual value and purpose from a young age, rather than being constantly measured against an impossible standard you could never meet. She turned to Ethan. When I paid those administrative fees on Corvus 7, I said I was curious to see if human compassion was as irrational as believed. I have my answer now. It is not irrational at all. It is perhaps the most rational response to a galaxy that too often values utility over inherent worth. Ethan felt uncomfortable with the praise. I just did what felt right. Precisely, Morenus said. You followed your moral instincts rather than cold calculation. And in doing so, you not only saved a life, but proved that alternative approaches to child development can succeed. Your bond with Lyra, your unwavering support despite your own financial hardship, has created a psychological foundation that allows her to flourish. She stood to leave, but paused at the airlock. The galaxy is changing, slowly. More species are beginning to question the old assumptions about value and worth. You too are part of that change, whether you intended to be or not. Continue as you have been. Your example matters. After she left, Lyra turned to Ethan. Did you know we were being observed for research? Ethan shook his head. No, but I'm not surprised. We are a pretty unusual case. Does it bother you that our relationship is being studied? Not really, Ethan said. If our story can help other silent Mirani, or any kids who are told they're not good enough, then that's a good thing. Besides, the science doesn't change what we have. That's real, regardless of how anyone else analyzes it. Lyra was quiet for a moment. Ethan, I have been offered a position at the Galactic Institute of Technology. Full scholarship to study advanced engineering. It is a tremendous opportunity. Ethan felt his heart sink, but he kept his expression neutral. That's amazing, Lyra. You absolutely should accept it. But it would mean leaving the Wandering Star. Leaving you. He sat down next to her. Lyra, I want you to listen to me very carefully. You have grown beyond needing me as a constant presence. You're capable, brilliant, and ready to explore opportunities that I can't provide on this ship. If the Institute is what you want, you should take it without guilt or hesitation. Her bioluminescence flickered with distress. But you saved me. You gave up everything for me. I owe you. You don't owe me anything, Ethan said firmly. I made a choice to help you because it was the right thing to do, not because I expected anything in return. Your obligation is not to me, but to yourself. To become whoever you want to be, to explore your full potential. That's what would make me happiest. But what if I want to stay? What if the Institute is an incredible opportunity, but this, you, the Wandering Star, this is where I belong? Ethan smiled. Then you stay, and we keep flying together. Lyra, the choice is entirely yours. There's no wrong answer here. You just need to decide what you truly want, not what you think you owe me or what others expect. She thought for a long time, her bioluminescence pulsing in complex patterns. Finally, she spoke. I want to stay, she said. Not because I owe you, and not because I fear independence, but because what we have built together is rare and valuable. We are a good team, Ethan. We balance each other. And there is more I wish to learn through experience than I could in any classroom. Are you sure? Ethan asked. This is a huge decision. I am sure, Lyra replied with conviction. The galaxy is vast, and there are countless opportunities. But there is only one Wandering Star, and only one you. This is where I choose to be. Ethan felt emotion welling up, but fought to keep his voice steady. Okay then, but I want you to promise me something. If you ever change your mind, if you ever want to pursue a different path, you tell me. No guilt, no hesitation. Deal? Deal, Lyra agreed, her bioluminescence bright with happiness. Their partnership continued to evolve and strengthen. As Lyra approached her 16th cycle, she had become not just an exceptional engineer, but a respected voice in technical circles. She published papers on quantum systems and individual observation theory that challenged conventional wisdom and opened new research directions. The Wandering Star itself had been transformed. With their accumulated earnings, they had upgraded nearly every system. The old cargo hauler now boasted cutting-edge engines, advanced sensors, and living quarters that were actually comfortable. But more importantly, it had become a true home for both of them. One evening, while in transit between jobs, Ethan and Lyra sat together in the observation deck they had added during the last refit. Through the transparent dome, the stars streamed past in brilliant lines as they traveled through hyperspace. "Do you ever think about that day on Corvus 7? Lyra asked. "When you saw me on the auction block." "Sometimes," Ethan admitted. "Why do you ask?" "I have been trying to understand your decision," she said. "You had never met me. You knew nothing about me except that I was considered worthless. Yet you sacrificed everything without hesitation. I understand the moral philosophy behind it, but I struggle with the emotional reality. How did you know I was worth saving?" Ethan considered the question carefully. "I didn't know," he finally said. "Not in any objective sense. I didn't know if you would be grateful or resentful. I didn't know if we would connect or clash. I didn't even know if you would survive the trauma you had experienced. All I knew was that you were a child in terrible circumstances, and I had the power to change that. But you gave up your entire life savings," Lyra pressed. "That was not a small gesture or easy charity. That was everything you had worked for." "True," Ethan agreed. "And if I'm being completely honest, there were a lot of factors in that moment. I saw you, small and frightened, but still standing with dignity. I heard the crowd laughing at your pain. I thought about all the times I had looked away from suffering because it was easier, safer, more practical. And I just couldn't do it anymore." He turned to look at her directly. "But here's the thing, Lyra. I didn't save you because I knew you would become an incredible engineer or because I predicted we would become family. I saved you simply because you deserve to be saved. The person you have become, the relationship we have built, those are wonderful gifts I never expected. But they were never the point. The point was that every being deserves dignity and the chance to live free." Lyra's bioluminescence pulsed in patterns he had learned meant deep thought. "This is what makes humans unique," she said softly. "Most species make decisions based on calculated benefit or collective good. But humans, you act on moral instinct even when it contradicts rational self-interest. The galaxy calls this a weakness, but I have come to believe it is your greatest strength." "How so?" "Because it creates possibilities that pure logic would eliminate," she explained. "If you had calculated the rational choice that day, you would have walked away. I would have been sold to someone cruel, probably died within a cycle. But you followed your moral instincts, and it changed both our lives immeasurably for the better. How many other impossible goods exist in the galaxy that never come to be because people choose logic over compassion?" Ethan smiled. "That's a profound way of looking at it. Though I have to say, you turned out to be a pretty logical choice in the end. Best crew member I ever had, remember?" Lyra laughed, the sound like crystal chimes. "Because you made me the best I could be. You gave me knowledge, opportunity, and most importantly, belief in my own worth. These are the tools that allowed me to flourish." Their peaceful moment was interrupted by an urgent transmission. It was from the Ran, the Mirani elder they had helped years before. His message was brief and distressing. "Lyra, we require your assistance urgently. A silent child, barely 8 cycles old, has been scheduled for abandonment. The Colony Council has deemed her too deficient to justify resources. We have argued against this action, but we lack the authority to prevent it. Please, if you can, help her as you were helped." Lyra looked at Ethan, her expression a mixture of determination and pain. "We have to go." Already plotting the course, Ethan replied. They reached the Mirani colony world within 2 days, pushing the wandering star's engines to their limits. The Ran met them at the spaceport, his bioluminescence dim with distress. "Her name is Sarah," he explained as he led them through the colony's crystalline structures. "She is completely unable to hear the song, even more isolated than you were, Lyra. But worse, she has begun to show aggressive behavior, lashing out at others in her frustration and pain. The council argues that she is not just silent, but dangerous. They found Sarah in an isolation chamber, a small room with transparent walls that allowed others to observe her, but prevented any interaction. She was tiny, even for a young Mirani, her bioluminescence almost completely dark. When she saw them approaching, she pressed herself against the far wall, her small face showing pure terror. Lyra knelt by the chamber wall. "Sarah, my name is Lyra. I am silent like you. I cannot hear the song either." The child's eyes widened. "You are like me? But you are grown. You survived." "I survived," Lyra confirmed. "And I have lived a good life, full of purpose and friendship. Being silent does not mean being broken or worthless, Sarah. It means being different, and different can be wonderful. They are going to abandon me, Sarah whispered. They say I am defective and violent. They say there is no place for me. Ethan stepped forward. Then we will make a place for you. If you want to come with us, we will take you. You will be safe, cared for, and valued. Sarah looked between them with desperate hope. Truly? You would take me even though I am bad. You're not bad, Lyra said firmly. You are scared and hurt and angry, which are completely understandable responses to terrible treatment. But those feelings do not define you. You get to decide who you become. The colony council was less than cooperative. Allowing you to take the child is highly irregular, one counselor argued. She is Mirani. She should remain with Mirani. She is a child you were planning to abandon to die, Ethan countered. You don't get to claim species solidarity after that. Either let us take her and give her a chance at life, or admit you care more about your principles than her well-being. The Ran intervened, his authority as an elder carrying weight. The human speaks truth. We have already failed this child. If they offer her sanctuary and care, we should be grateful, not obstructive. It took hours of negotiation, but eventually, they secured legal guardianship of Sarah. Lyra held the small child's hand as they walked back to the wandering star, speaking softly about the ship and the life that awaited her. That night, with Sarah asleep in a hastily prepared cabin, Ethan and Lyra talked in the cockpit. This is going to be complicated, Ethan said. Sarah has experienced significant trauma, probably more than you did. Her aggressive behavior is a symptom of that. We will need to be patient, to give her time and space to heal. I know, Lyra replied. But we can do this. You showed me how. Now I can help show her. Ethan looked at this remarkable young woman who had once been a terrified child on an auction block. You have grown so much, Lyra. I am incredibly proud of you. Because you believed in me when no one else did, she said simply. Now we will believe in Sarah. We will show her that being silent is not a curse, but simply a different way of experiencing the galaxy. And we will give her the tools to build a life worth living. The next months were challenging. Sarah struggled with nightmares, emotional outbursts, and deep-seated beliefs about her own worthlessness. But slowly, with consistent care, clear boundaries, and unwavering support, she began to heal. Lyra proved to be an excellent mentor, understanding Sarah's struggles in ways Ethan never could. Watching Lyra guide Sarah through her pain and confusion, Ethan was struck by how the cycle of compassion continued. He had saved Lyra, who was now saving Sarah. Each act of kindness rippled outward, creating possibilities that would never have existed otherwise. One evening, nearly a year after Sarah had joined them, Ethan found both girls in the observation deck. Lyra was teaching Sarah about stellar cartography, and Sarah was asking questions with the eager curiosity of a healthy, happy child. Her bioluminescence, once nearly dark, now glowed with steady brightness. Ethan, Sarah called out when she noticed him. Lyra is teaching me about neutron stars. Did you know they spin hundreds of times per second? That is so fast. It is pretty amazing, Ethan agreed, settling into a seat near them. Sarah looked at him with the earnest seriousness that children sometimes display. Lyra told me you saved her from slavery, that you gave all your money to set her free. Is that true? It is, Ethan confirmed. Why? Sarah asked. She says you did not know her, did not know if she would be useful or good. So why did you do it? Ethan smiled. Because she deserved to be free and safe, regardless of what she could offer me in return. Just like you deserve the same things. Sarah thought about this. Among the Mirani, value comes from contribution to the song. If you cannot contribute, you have no value. But you say we have value just by existing? Exactly, Ethan said. Your worth is inherent, not earned. You matter because you are a living, thinking, feeling being. What you choose to do with your life, how you choose to contribute, those are gifts you offer the galaxy, not debts you owe. The small child's bioluminescence brightened. I like this way of thinking. It makes me feel less heavy inside. Good, Lyra said, putting an arm around Sarah. Because you deserve to feel light and free. You deserve to be happy. As Ethan watched them together, he reflected on the unlikely family they had become. A human cargo hauler, a silent Mirani engineer, and a traumatized child. By all logical standards, they should never have come together. But through choices made from compassion rather than calculation, they had created something rare and precious. The galaxy continued to change around them. More silent Mirani were seeking alternative paths, inspired by Lyra's example. Other species were beginning to question their own assumptions about value and worth. The rigid hierarchies and cruel efficiencies that had dominated galactic culture for millennia were showing cracks. And in those cracks, something new was growing. A recognition that diversity, compassion, and individual worth were not weaknesses but strengths. That a galaxy rich in different perspectives, different ways of thinking and being, was stronger than one built on conformity and calculated utility. Ethan knew he had played only a small part in this shift. One decision on one day to help one child. But that single choice had created ripples that continued to spread. Lyra inspired others, who would inspire still more. Sarah would grow and find her own path, touching other lives in ways no one could predict. This was humanity's true gift to the galaxy, Ethan realized. Not superior technology or military might or economic power, but the simple, stubborn insistence that compassion mattered, that individuals had worth, that doing the right thing was more important than doing the profitable thing. 5 years after saving Lyra, 10 years after starting his cargo hauling career, Ethan stood on the bridge of the Wandering Star and looked at his crew. Lyra, now a young woman of 20 cycles, was one of the most respected engineers in the sector. Sarah, at 13 cycles, showed a remarkable talent for xenobiology and was already publishing observations that impressed established scientists. Together, they had built something that transcended simple business relationships or even friendship. They were a family, bound not by biology or species, but by choice and care. A transmission came in, another job offer. But this one was different. It was from the Galactic Council itself, requesting their assistance with a delicate first contact situation. A newly discovered species was showing signs of abandoning members of their population deemed defective. The council wanted Lyra and Sarah to serve as consultants, to share their experiences and advocate for alternative approaches. "What do you think?" Ethan asked. "It is a significant responsibility." Lyra and Sarah exchanged glances, their bioluminescence pulsing in synchronized patterns that suggested they were communicating wordlessly, not through the song, but through years of close companionship. "We should do it," Lyra said. "If our story can help prevent other children from suffering as we did, we have an obligation to try." Sarah nodded enthusiastically. "We can show them that being different is not the same as being less. That every being deserves a chance to find their own path." Ethan smiled at his remarkable crew. "Then we accept. Plot a course for Council Central, Lyra." As the Wandering Star turned toward new adventures, Ethan thought about that day on Corvus 7 when he had bankrupted himself to save a frightened alien child. He had given up his retirement, his financial security, his carefully planned future. In return, he had gained a family, a purpose, and the knowledge that his choices mattered. The galaxy still had its share of cruelty and injustice, but it also had people willing to stand against those forces, to choose compassion over calculation, to insist that every life had value. And sometimes, those choices created ripples that changed everything. Lyra approached him as they entered hyperspace. "Thank you," she said simply, "for everything." Ethan put an arm around her shoulders. "Thank you for letting me be part of your journey, for becoming the amazing person you are, for showing me that doing the right thing is never a mistake, even when it is difficult." She leaned against him, her bioluminescence warm and steady. "You taught me that worth is inherent, not earned. That being different is not the same as being defective. That compassion and kindness are not weaknesses, but the greatest strengths any being can possess. These lessons changed my life, Ethan. And through me, they are changing the galaxy, one person at a time." Sarah joined them, her small hand finding Lyra's. "Are we going to help a lot of people?" she asked. "We are going to try," Ethan replied. "We are going to show them that there is a better way. That every being deserves dignity, opportunity, and the chance to reach their full potential. We are going to prove that humanity's greatest export is not technology or trade, but hope." The three of them stood together on the bridge of the Wandering Star, looking out at the stars streaming past. A human who had chosen compassion over comfort, a silent Mirani who had found her voice, and a traumatized child who was learning to thrive. An unlikely family, united by the simple belief that kindness mattered and that every life was worth saving. Behind them, their past stretched back to a slave market on Corvus 7, to an auction block where a desperate choice had been made. Before them, their future extended into infinite possibilities, adventures yet to be had, lives yet to be touched, changes yet to be made. And in that moment, Ethan knew with absolute certainty that he would make the same choice again. Not because it was logical or profitable or easy, but because it was right. Because some things matter more than money or plans or personal comfort. Because in a galaxy that too often valued utility over inherent worth, someone needed to stand up and say that every being deserved a chance at happiness. That was what it meant to be human. To care when caring was difficult, to help when helping was costly, to believe in second chances and redemption and the power of compassion to change lives. It was not always the easy path, but it was always the right one. The wandering star carried them forward into the unknown, its crew ready to face whatever challenges awaited. They had been broken and discarded, saved and redeemed. Now they would pay that gift forward, offering hope to others who had been told they were worthless. Because in the end, that was the greatest lesson of all. That worth was not determined by ability or productivity or conformity to others' expectations. Worth was inherent, inalienable, and absolute. Every being mattered. Every life was precious. And sometimes, all it took was one person willing to believe that truth and act on it, to change everything. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.